Most people think their suffering comes from what's happening in their life, their relationships, their job, their childhood, their circumstances. But what if the real source of suffering isn't what's happening to you, but the way your mind is interpreting everything that happens? Because two people can live the exact same situation and experience completely different emotional realities. One feels peace, the other feels fear, tension, and self attack. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why your mind keeps defaulting to fear and how healing actually begins at the level of perception, not circumstance. If you're someone healing from trauma, complex PTSD, anxious attachment, or emotional neglect, you might notice something like this. You overthink simple interactions. You replay conversations in your mind. You feel anxious when someone takes longer to reply. You feel rejected even when nothing was said. You prepare for abandonment even in safe relationships. And sometimes you don't even trust calm moments because calm feels unfamiliar. It can feel like you're constantly trying to stabilize your emotional world by controlling what others do. But no matter how much you try, your nervous system keeps scanning for threat. Not because something is wrong with you, but because something in you learned that safety was unpredictable. From a trauma and attachment perspective, this is deeply understandable. Your nervous system learned survival through adaptation. If love was inconsistent, you learned hypervigilance. If care was conditional, you learned performance. If emotional safety wasn't guaranteed, you learned control. So now your mind creates meaning automatically. It interprets silence as rejection, distance as abandonment, neutral expressions as danger. Your brain isn't reacting to reality, it's reacting to memory. This is why trauma feels like overreaction from the outside, but complete survival logic from the inside. Because your nervous system isn't asking what is actually happening. It's asking, have I felt this pain before? And the mind creates stories to explain that sensation. Stories like, I'm not enough, they don't care, I'm going to be left. Not because they are true, but because the nervous system prefers certainty over uncertainty, even if that certainty is painful. But here's where the deeper shift happens. What if you're not reacting to reality, but reacting to a lens through which reality is filtered? Because when fear becomes the default lens, even neutral situations feel threatening. Even love feels unsafe. Even success doesn't feel safe. So the real issue isn't just what's happening in your life. It's the interpretative system running underneath it. The mind trained in fear will always find fear, even in peaceful environments, even in safe relationships. And this is why healing is not just about changing your circumstances, but learning to notice the lens itself. So let's make this real. Anxious attachment. Someone doesn't reply for a few hours. You feel tension rise, you imagine distance, you start preparing emotionally for rejection. Not because rejection is happening, but because your system learned to anticipate it. Now, avoidant attachment. Someone gets emotionally close. You feel overwhelmed, you start pulling back, you rationalize distance as independence. But underneath, it is often fear of dependence, not lack of care. Now, disorganized attachment. You want closeness, but closeness feels unsafe. So you move towards connection, then away from it. A constant internal contradiction. And even in secure moments, someone shows love clearly, but instead of feeling safe, you feel suspicious because your nervous system is still learning that peace is allowed. Healing begins when you stop treating every thought as true and start seeing thoughts as signals, not commands, not reality, just signals. Your nervous system is not broken, it is adaptive. It learned strategies that once helped you survive emotional unpredictability. But what once protected you can now limit your ability to experience connection. So, healing is not forcing yourself to think positive. It's learning to pause long enough to ask, what lens am I seeing this through right now? Fear or something more grounded, something more open, something more connected? Because every moment you pause, you create space between perception and reaction. And that space is where change begins. So maybe the real journey of healing isn't about becoming a different person. It's about learning to recognize the voice in your mind before you believe it. Because most suffering doesn't come from life itself. It comes from interpretation layer on top of life. And once you start noticing that lens, you realize something powerful. You are not trapped inside your thoughts. You are the one noticing them. And that changes everything.